What is up, guys? This is JT. Welcome to my backyard and welcome to Bodyweight Strength. In this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a dedicated chest workout. Keep in mind that with bodyweight strength training, everything that we do essentially is full body or working a majority of the body. So when I say it's a chest workout, you are still going to be activating the anterior core, posterior core. You're going to be utilizing the glutes, the larger muscles in the legs. You're still going to be using most of the muscles in the body. And of course, you're going to be using the triceps for pressing. It's not just a chest workout, but this is going to be the equivalent of, you look at a bro split in bodybuilding and people go to the gym and they're going for chest day. Okay, so this is basically going to be the bodyweight strength equivalent of hitting chest day. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take you through the individual movements that I suggest that you do for a chest day. And then I'm going to show those in succession. That way you can watch this, see the training session, and go get started if that's what you want to do. I'm only going to do 1 rep of each movement, and then that way it's as condensed and as actionable as possible. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back on, and I'm going to talk about each movement, and I'm going to give you details that you're going to want to keep in mind to get the best, safest, most effective training session possible. So without further ado, let me demonstrate. All right, now that little montage gives you the movements that I suggest you do and the order with which I would do them. And let's unpack that a little bit. So the reason that I like the order that I presented is that you've got to think about the musculature and how it works. And your pectoral muscles, your chest muscles, they're a larger muscle than the triceps. So when you are doing a pressing workout, when you're working chest, what happens is the triceps are oftentimes a muscle that will fail while the pecs still could have gone further. So essentially the larger muscle is not failing or getting very close to the point of failure, because a smaller supporting muscle is failing sooner. So what you'll notice is I started off my my program with a hollow body hold, a support hollow body hold on rings. And what I'll do is I will link in the video notes each video that digs into more detail on each one of these movements, so that if you need to figure out how to do the specific movement that I did, you can click and go to that video. But basically, starting out in that support position is going to get the pecs fired, get them engaged, and that isometric hold that you do in support position, remember, isometrics do build strength, and they do stimulate hypertrophy. So you start off in that support hold, and the support hold is going to be specifically working those pecs, especially if you can get those rings turned out, which takes some work, takes some practice. But once you've got those rings turned out and you start out with a nice, 30-second, 60-second, or even longer, depending on where you're at ability-wise, but you start out with a nice support position. When you come down off that support position, the pump is real, your chest is fired up, your tries are still fairly fresh, you're engaging the musculature in the isometric, but really what you're going to find is it is almost exclusively the pecs, a little bit of serratus, that you've worked in that set. So what we've done is we have essentially pre-fatigued the pecs, so that moving into our actual pressing movements, where we're going to be bringing those triceps in more, and where those smaller supporting musculature could fail, you're already going to have some stimulation of the pecs. So hopefully what we're trying to do is have those pecs then fail when the supporting musculature fails, rather than the supporting musculature failing first and the pecs never getting there. Hopefully that makes sense. What you'll notice, the second thing I did a set of ring dips with rings turned out, and the primary reason is wide ring dips, rather, with rings turned out. The primary reason is that when you do wide ring dips, when you come down and you've got the arms at that 90-degree angle, if you're strong enough to do wide ring dips, they are very pec dominant. The triceps are not engaged nearly as much or responsible for as much of the movement as they would be in a standard ring dip. If you don't have a wide ring dip, then what you can do is you can go to your standard push-ups, which I did next. And those standard, when I say standard, I'm talking hollow body push-ups. As with all my content, we're talking hollow body. But you can go to normal push-ups, and in those push-ups, notice that, and this is in the push-up tutorial as well, but notice that I brought my hands from the normal starting position, shoulder width wide. I brought my hands back 6 inches, and studies have shown that hands back 6 inches, and I moved them in for a little bit of a closer grip. That's going to give you maximum pectoral engagement and also tricep. But that pectoral engagement you can leverage from your standard push-ups. And then after the standard push-ups, if you don't have wide ring dips, what I would do is I would come back to the rings and do your standard ring dips. I apologize for the gardener. I live in suburbia. There's gardeners all day every weekday, so we're just going to have to let it go. So you're going to do either the wide ring dips like I did, and then after the wide ring dips, move to your push-ups. Or if you don't have wide ring dips, like I mentioned, do your push-ups first, then come to standard ring dips, okay? After that, what you're gonna notice is that that progression, that order of movements is really gonna be targeting the pecs. Now, after the rings and your standard push-up, what you're going to do is feet elevated push-ups. So the body's in a decline, but you are actually pressing what is equivalent to an incline push-up if you were lifting at a gym, okay? And the reason that we're adding that in is that studies show that the best way to engage the serratus is in that incline pressing movement, which again, incline pressing movement, even though the body is declined. So it's a little bit confusing with body weight strength. When we say a decline push-up, the body is declined, but the pressing movement is inclined, and that's really gonna bring the serratus in. And again, the serratus tie into the pectorals. So we're trying to make sure that we're working the entirety of the pecs, but also you need to bring the delts in. You can't work chest without the tricep. Same thing with serratus. So this is a chest workout, but I'm trying to make sure you're getting all that musculature recruited, and that you are basically doing the movements that are going to allow you to build muscle across the entirety of that pressing musculature. After you do your, again, body decline, pressing motion is incline. After you do that, then what you're going to do is you're going to come to the elevated archer push-up or the one-arm push-up. What you'll notice is I demonstrated both. And what happens with the archer and with the one-arm push-up is that your front delt, your serratus for stabilization, the tricep, the rest of the pressing musculature outside of the pec is now responsible for more of the movement than in any other of the movements that we do. So a one-arm push-up is an outstanding full body movement, builds a lot of strength, but it is not the best movement for training the pecs. So that's why we do this order where we're doing these other exercises first. We're bringing it around to the elevated archer or the one-arm push-up to really bring in the rest of the pressing musculature. And after you do those, what you saw me do was finish off with good old-fashioned standard bench dips. And the bench dips are for those of you who really want extra tricep work, okay? They really do primarily isolate the triceps. Obviously, you are still moving your body. It's not true isolation when you would compare it to, for example, a cable pull down. But you will notice, if you do them right, and you've seen the form that I demonstrated, if you do them well, it is really, really gonna get a crazy pump. It's really gonna target the triceps. And so if you finish off your pressing or your chest workout with those standard bench dips for your triceps, it's an outstanding, finisher or finishing move for this type of training session. So I threw it in there for those of you who want to try to isolate arms, although I don't isolate my own arms, but that's another story. So that is the movements that we're doing, and that is the logic behind why we do them in that particular order. Now, you can program this a ton of different ways, like I mentioned before. You can basically do a dedicated chest workout. You can move through these with whatever your rest periods happen to be, or you can alternate, do like an upper body where you do a set of press and then rest, then do a set of pull, and go back to a set of pressing, then rest, then a set of pull. So you can do something like that. And there's not a right or wrong answer, but what I found to be really effective is to do this basically succession of movements, one set either to failure or just shy of failure. Your intensity of effort is really important whether or not you go to absolute failure. But if you do these movements and you do one set all the way through, so you do the isometric hold, okay, then you've got dips, then you've got push-ups, and then you've got your incline push-up, and then you've got your one-arm push-up, and then you've got your dips. So you've got 7 movements, okay? If you do those 7 sets to just shy of failure or to failure, depending on how you want to do it, you're working through 7 sets. If you do this training session 2 times a week, that's giving you 14 sets for the upper body pressing musculature without an overhead press, okay? So when you look at research that's done recently, there's always this debate about volume and intensity and what's too much volume. And in my mind, it depends on where you're at in your training, how experienced you are, what your past volume and intensity have been. There's a lot of factors, so there's not really a one-size-fits-all. But recent meta-analysis by Brad Schoenfeld and some others show that weekly, you want to do at least 10 sets per muscle group per week. So if you were to do this training session 2 times a week, you would have volume in excess of the minimum that meta-analyses are suggesting. So for people who aren't sure, how much should I do? How many times am I supposed to be training? If you want to do a total of these movements twice a week, that's going to put you, from a volume perspective, well above the minimum for hypertrophy. So if your goal is to build muscle, and I know a lot of you, your goal is to build muscle because I hear it all the time. So if your goal is hypertrophy and that's really what you're after, then I think that from a pectoral and pressing musculature standpoint, this is going to do it really, really well for you. The only thing I don't have in here is an overhead press. You know I love my overhead pressing, so that's something you've got to figure out where to put into your routine, okay? But that's not working your pecs, that's not chest. Very, very slightly it is, but it's going to be more shoulder, little serratus, triceps. So I'm going to do another video for that. I'll do another shoulder video. And actually, I think I'm going to turn this into a series. And so we're going to turn this into a series where we're taking kind of the bro split and breaking down the movements in the bro split. And if you're not familiar with what that is, we got chest or pressing day. We're going to have back or pulling day. We're going to go shoulders. We're going to go legs. And then I'm going to give you anterior and posterior core. And so these training sessions are going to be multiple sets for each of those movements. And then you can take these and you can do what you will with them programming wise. If you have questions with how to program this into various splits, ask in the comments below. I'm more than happy to help out, you know, within reason as much as I can based on the time that I've got available. Hopefully you found this video useful. Please let me know, reach out, comment back, ask questions. Only from getting feedback from you guys do I have any clue what kind of content I should be making. And so I want to do the best job for you that I can, but in order for me to do that, I've got to hear feedback. So talk to me, let me know what you want to see. And if you've stuck with me this long, I truly appreciate your support. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next of the Bro Split series.